Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane and Molly. Yes, welcome in. Today is May 11th, and you're over here at Blue Box 29. With May 11th, we are still in week 2 of the fertile earth in the month of creation and fertility. Today is all about the gardens. So as you can see, we've been running around all day. We're preparing garden beds. Was actually designing some new things today, as well as a dog station for outside to clean and shave the dogs. And actually having a station outside where you can clean up the roots of our plants and I guess our vegetation when we get there as well. You got it, Molly. But the theme is cultivated beauty, and our lesson is the care creates life. Come here, sweetheart. She wants to be more active in the episode today. But the question that we're going to think of today, and then I'm just going to let you go off because the sun is still up a little bit. So I might try to get a little bit more in today. But the question is, what am I growing carefully? So think today with these 4 stories as you listen to the garden and think about what am I growing carefully or what should I be growing carefully? And think about it in the sense of both external and internal. What am I growing within myself versus what am I growing within my house? What am I growing outside? All of that fun stuff. But after you're done thinking about that, you're going to tend something living with attention and gentleness today. So you're going to physically go out and tend to something, whether it be a cute little animal, maybe a plant, whether you have one in your house or out. You can just go out in nature. Tend to something living today with attention and gentleness. There are a lot of different ways that you can do that, but just offer steady care to one meaningful commitment. Sometimes all we need is that steady care, that constant care to keep us going, just not relying on it, but just having that feeling of love constantly surrounding us so that it's not just the hard days where we're feeling it, but every day. We can always rely on that. But we are giving that love out today. We are building gardens. We are helping gardens. We are acknowledging gardens. Molly is glaring at me because she said it's time to head back outside. So yeah, enjoy these 4 stories and think about what you're growing carefully, what you could be growing carefully, and have a beautiful May 11th. And your 4 stories are going to be Persian, Chinese, Mesopotamian, and French. So enjoy these 4 stories with the garden. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Paradisa, the garden that mirrors the divine. In the ancient lands where desert and mountain meet, where the sun casts long shadows across the dry earth and water is held as a treasure beyond measure, there came into being a vision unlike the wild and untamed world that surrounded it. This was the Paradisa, the enclosed garden, a space not formed by chance, but shaped with intention, where the forces of nature were gathered, ordered, and brought into harmony. Before such gardens existed, the land was vast and open, its beauty raw and uncontained, its abundance scattered and uncertain. Water flowed where it would, plants grew where they could, and the earth revealed its gift without structure. Yet within the landscape arose the understanding that beauty could be cultivated, that life could be guided, and that through care, the land itself could become a reflection of something greater. The garden was not merely a place of growth, but a deliberate creation, a space where water, earth, air, and light were brought together in balance, each element given its place, each movement shaped with purpose. The paradisa was formed through the careful drawing of boundaries, not to confine life, but to protect and nurture it. Walls were raised to hold the space, not as barriers, but as guardians, separating the cultivating world within from the harsher conditions beyond. Within these walls, water was guided through channels, flowing in measured paths that brought life to every corner of the garden. Trees were planted in alignment, their roots reaching deep into the soil, their branches offering shade and fruit. Flowers were arranged not in disorder, but in patterns that reflected both beauty and intention, their colors shifting with the seasons, their presence marking the passage of time. The air within the garden carried the scent of growth, of blossoms and ripening fruit, a contrast to the dryness that lay beyond its boundaries. Those who entered such a space did not simply see a collection of plants, but experienced a world shaped by care, where every element worked in harmony with the others. The garden became a place of reflection, where the order of the natural world was made visible, where the unseen balance that sustains life could be felt in every step. In time, the paradisa came to be understood as more than a cultivated space, but as a mirror of the divine order, a reflection of how life itself is sustained when guided with intention and care. It was said that such gardens echoed the greater pattern of existence, that just as the garden required tending, so, too, did the world, so, too, did the inner life of those who walked within it. The flowing water represented the movement of life, the trees, the stability of growth, the flowers, the fleeting beauty of each moment, and the walls, the boundaries that allow such balance to exist. Those who tended the gardens not merely worked the land, but participated in a greater act, shaping a space where harmony could be maintained. The garden did not remain fixed, for it required continual care, its balance sustained through ongoing attention, its beauty preserved through the hands that nurtured it. In this way, it became a living expression of cultivated life, where what was planted could flourish, where what was tended could endure. Thus, the paradisa remained not only a place, but a principle, a reminder that life, when given care and structure, can become something more than survival, can rise into beauty, into balance, into a form that reflects a deeper order of existence. In every garden that was planted, in every space shaped with intention, there remained the presence of this understanding, that cultivated beauty is not separate from life, but a part of its highest expression, brought forth through care, through patience, and through quiet work of tending what has been given. Story 2. The Orchard of Immortality, the peaches that ripen beyond time. In the highest reaches beyond the ordinary world, where the heavens extend into realms unseen by mortal eyes, there exists a garden not bound by the passing of human time, a place where growth follows a rhythm far older and more measured than the seasons of the earth. This is the orchard of the Queen Mother of the West, Shuangmu, whose domain lies upon the sacred mountains, where the air is clear and the presence of the divine is carried in every breath. Within her garden grow the peaches of immortality, trees whose roots reach into the unseen, whose branches rise into the heavens, bearing fruit not each year, but in cycles that stretch across centuries. The orchard does not change with haste, nor does it yield to impatience, for its growth follows a rhythm that cannot be forced, only awaited. The blossoms appear when the time is right, delicate and pale, opening slowly, marking the beginning of a long unfolding. The fruit itself takes thousands of years to ripen, each stage of its growth reflecting a deeper movement, one that aligns not with the urgency of life, but with its enduring continuity. The garden itself is tended with care, not through hurried labor, but through a steady and deliberate presence, for within it, every element must remain in balance. The trees are spaced with intention, their forms allowed to grow in accordance with their nature, their branches shaped not by force, but by guidance. The waters that nourish the orchard move in quiet channels, sustaining the roots without overwhelming them, their flow reflecting the measured passage of time. Immortals gather in this place when the fruit ripens, drawn not by hunger, but by the recognition of what the peaches represent. To partake of them is not simply to eat, but to enter into the rhythm of the garden itself, to align with the cycle that moves beyond ordinary existence. The feast that is held when the fruit is ready is not one of excess, but of acknowledgement, a recognition of the time that has passed, of the patience that has been required, and of the continuity that the orchard embodies. The garden does not produce endlessly, nor does it offer itself without condition, for its abundance is tied to its rhythm, its giving aligned with the cycle that governs it. As the fruit is gathered and the feast concludes, the orchard does not remain in fullness, but returns to its quiet state, its branches once again holding on to leaves, its blossoms having fallen, its fruit having been consumed. Yet this is not an ending, but a return to the beginning of the cycle, a continuation that moves beyond a single moment of abundance. The trees remain, their roots deep, their branches patient, their next flowering already contained within what is unseen. Those who understand the orchard do not seek to hasten its growth, for they know that what is cultivated must follow its own rhythm, that time itself is part of the process through which life unfolds. The garden becomes a reflection of this truth, a place where the nature of growth is made visible, where the relationship between care and time is understood as essential. Thus, the orchard of Shiwangmu stands not only as a place of divine nourishment, but as a reminder that life does not yield to urgency, that what is most enduring requires patience, and that cultivated beauty is not defined by how quickly it appears, but by how deeply it is rooted. In every blossom that opens after long waiting, in every fruit that ripens beyond the measure of ordinary time, there remains the presence of this garden, the quiet and enduring truth that growth follows its own path, and that what is tended with care will rise in its proper moment. Story 3. The Hanging Gardens, the Living Terrace of Devotion. In the ancient city of Babylon, where the earth lay flat beneath a vast and unyielding sky, where heat pressed upon the earth and water was drawn carefully from the great river, there rose a vision unlike any other, a structure that defined the nature of its surroundings. This was the Hanging Gardens, said to have been brought into being by King Nebuchadnezzar for his queen, Amytis, who longed for the green hills and flowing terraces of her homeland. In a place where stone and sun dominated the landscape, he sought to create not merely a garden, but a living world elevated above the ground, where the memory of distant lands could be made present through careful cultivation. The gardens were not planted upon the earth alone, but raised upon terraces, layer upon layer, forming a structure where soil was carried upward, where trees grew at heights they were not meant to reach, and where water flowed in defiance of the natural slope of the land. The city below remained as it was, yet above it, there emerged a space shaped entirely by intention, where life was sustained through continuous effort. The creation of such a place required more than desire, for the gardens could not exist without constant tending, without the movement of water drawn upward from the river and carried through hidden systems that fed the roots of every plant. Channels were built, mechanisms set in motion, and the labor of many ensured that the terraces remained alive, that the soil did not dry, that the greenery did not fade under the weight of the sun. Trees spread their branches across the elevated paths, their leaves offering shade, their fruit providing sustenance, while vines trailed along the edges, softening the stone with their growth. Flowers opened in colors that stood in contrast to the desert beyond, their presence marking the success of what had been created. The garden was not left to grow as it would, but shaped continually, guided by hands that understood that life, when removed from its natural place, requires even greater care to endure. Those who walked within it did not simply pass through a cultivated space, but entered a world sustained through devotion, where every element existed because it had been given attention, where every living thing was supported by the effort that maintained it. Yet the gardens were not without their impermanence, for what is built through labor must be sustained through it as well, and what is sustained can also be lost when that labor ceases. Over time, the systems that carried water may falter, the terraces may weaken, and the plants that once thrived may begin to fade if left unattended. The Hanging Gardens became not only a symbol of beauty, but of the ongoing relationship between creation and care, a reminder that what is cultivated does not remain without continued effort. The people come to understand that such beauty is not found in the act of creation alone, but in the commitment that follows, in the willingness to maintain what has been brought into being. The gardens, whether standing or remembered, carried this truth, that life shaped by human hands requires human care, that what is lifted from the ordinary into the extraordinary must be supported to remain. Thus, the Hanging Garden stood as both achievement and lesson, a place where cultivated beauty rose above the land, sustained through intention, through labor, and through the enduring act of tending. In every terrace that held life above the ground, in every plant that grew where it would not have grown alone, there remained the presence of this understanding, that care is not a single act, but a continuous one, and that life, when nurtured with devotion, can flourish even in the most unlikely places. Story 4. The Garden Spirits, the Keepers of Quiet Growth. In the old countryside where stone walls traces the edges of fields and gardens rest beside cottages shaped by time, There are said to dwell small and watchful presences, beings not often seen, yet known through the life they tend. These are the garden spirits, called by many names, yet recognized through their quiet work, their influence carried in the health of the plants, in the balance of the soil, and in the subtle harmony that settles over a well-kept place. They do not appear as grand figures, nor do they move with the force of gods, but exist in the spaces between, in the turning of the earth, in the opening of leaves, in the unseen processes that allow growth to continue. In the earliest tellings, it is said that when a garden is first planted, when the soil is turned and the seeds are placed within it, these spirits are drawn to the space, not by command, but by the presence of care, where attention is given, where the land is worked with patience and respect. They come to dwell, taking part of the shaping of what grows. The garden spirits do not act through sudden change, but through small and steady influence, guiding the growth of plants, protecting them from harm when balance is maintained, and ensuring that the cycles of the garden remain in order. It is said that they move through the soil itself, loosening what must be loosened, strengthening what must endure, their presence felt in the vitality of the roots. They are carried in the morning dew that settles upon leaves, in the quiet movements of the insects that pollinate the blossoms, in the unseen exchanges that sustain life beneath the surface. Those who tend the garden may not see them directly, yet they come to recognize their presence in the way that plants respond, in the way the garden seems to hold itself together, even through the challenges of changing weather and shifting seasons. Yet this presence is not without condition, for the spirits do not remain where the land is neglected, where the soil is left untended, where care is absent. When the garden is abandoned, when attention fades, the balance shifts, and the life within the space begins to falter, not through sudden loss, but through gradual decline. Over time, those who work the land come to understand that the garden is not sustained by effort alone, but by relationship, by the connection between those who tend it and the unseen forces that support its growth. Small offerings are sometimes left, not as payment, but as acknowledgement, a recognition that what grows is not created by human hands alone. The act of tending becomes more than labor, becoming a form of participation in a larger process, where the visible and invisible work together to bring life into being. The garden itself becomes a place of quiet presence, where growth unfolds not through force, but through care given over time. The spirits remain within this process, unseen yet enduring, their influence carried forward in each season, in each planting, in each harvest that follows. Thus, the garden is never merely a collection of plants, but a living space shaped by both human efforts and unseen guidance, where cultivated beauty arises through the joining of care and presence. In every flower that opens, in every fruit that ripens, and in every seed that returns to the soil, there remains the quiet work of the garden spirits, the keepers of growth, who dwell where life is tended with patience, and whose presence ensures that what is nurtured may continue to thrive. The daily thread for May 11th. What is tended begins to transform. Care shapes what beauty becomes. Water, soil, and time answer devotion. Growth follows the hands that remain. What is nurtured deepens its roots. Balance is built through attention. The unseen supports what is loved, and life flourishes where it is cared for.